Now, I have the lovely pleasure of introducing Murray, who I've known for goodness knows how long, 20-something years, I was thinking, maybe 24 years. Now, this presentation will tell how Murray came to assist noted clairvoyant lecturer and writer Geoffrey Hodson in the investigation of the subtle energy forms created by music. We'll hear about the insights gained into the living heart of music and how it is grounded in the ultimate vibration, the divine creative word, hence its power to heal and to transform. There will be examples of the music forms seen, accompanied by the music which created them.
Right, well, this is a pleasure, It's a topic that I've loved for long, of course, with a lifelong interest in music. Music is multidimensional, and the dimensions we hope to be exploring tonight will be not only the physical dimension, but also the emotional and mental and spiritual aspects of music. As you've heard, Geoffrey is an internationally respected writer and lecturer and researcher, and I had the amazing experience of being able to help him in a second round of music forms research way back around about the 1980s, or just a little bit before that. And perhaps I'll explain to you how that happened first. I, at about that time, was invited to give a talk at the HBB Lodge, and I chose the topic of music and its spiritual aspects, its esoteric phenomena. And of course, with my extensive background in physics, but by then I was able to talk about the physics of music and to link that into the esoteric aspects of music. However, I plucked up the courage one day. Well, it took me a while to do that, a number of years, but eventually I thought, oh, I'm going to be giving talks on this. I do want to know what Geoffrey thinks about it. And I put my question to him, and without a moment's hesitation, he said to me, Murray, music is highly mantric. And I thought, wow, because my intuition had told me that it was, but it was great to hear it from him himself. But then we went on to ask, or for me to ask other questions, and for him to give me the answers to them too. And it was a quite exhilarating time to be with the great man and have him answer my questions such as they were. Well, the time drew to a close. It must have been well over half an hour, I think, and I thanked him profusely and left and walked across the road. That's Belvedere Street here, for those who might know it, and went over to the headquarters of the TS, which at that time is number 10, Belvedere Street. And I was about to leave when, out of the blue, the telephone rang, and it was Geoffrey's wife, Sandra. And she said, oh, I don't suppose Murray is still there, is he? And the lady looked up at me and said, yes, he was just about to leave. And she put me onto Sandra to talk to her. And she said, Murray, would you mind coming over to Geoffrey's place again? He'd like to speak to you. And I thought, oh, what is this? What could it be? And it turned out that he wanted to invite me to help him in another round of clairvoyant research on music, of course, like that. And I thought, well, this is not only Christmas, but it's next year's Christmas coming for me, I think. And I said, yes, I'd love to. I'd love to do that. And and that is basically how it began. And we teed up the research session with him, and he wanted to know how I could help him. And it was to help to include a number of musicians. And the ones we picked initially were members of the Theosophical Society. And it was just an extraordinary experience. I asked Wendy Dixon and Michael Dixon and one or two others as well. And it was just an awesome experience. The first thing we did was to ask him to invite asked him to investigate music. First of all, played only by me on my clarinet. We began small, and I brought my clarinet into the first session, and I played notes. And the first task was to see what colors he observed when I played, for example, B flat on my clarinet. And then we tried another note. It might have been like E flat or something like this. And I put the question to him, what do you see, using your clairvoyant abilities when I play one note, and then after a while I play another note? Well, that was very interesting. And the person who took the notes was a wonderful lady called Peace Thorne at that time, a member of the Theosophical Society. And it was just awesome. We had probably about 2 research sessions on that. And it was a bit difficult because he began to see different colors. I began with, I forgot what it was, the first note. It might have been the note C, and he investigated as much as he could. But as it turned out, he found it rather difficult. And I found it a bit difficult as well. And the reason was that as I played, for example, that C, the first note C, he would observe maybe a deep green. But then he began to say things like, well, I am seeing a deep green. After we tried it a bit more, he said, yeah, but it's not just green I'm seeing, and there's also yellow. And when he looked a bit harder, he said, well, yeah, but there's violet as well. And it began to be a bit too hard for us. And I think that what was going on was that he also observed the harmonics of the note. And the clarinet, as a few of you might know, produces a lot of odd multiples of the frequencies. And he decided to stop. It was great, but it was a bit too hard to pin down the actual frequencies and the colors. But that was interesting. The good old piece wrote down what she absorbed, and we decided then to actually stop observing the colors. And we thought, right, okay, from here on it'll be pieces of music as such. Therefore, the next research program that we did was a number of pieces of music. By the way, I should let you know that it was different shades of color, as I think I talked a moment ago. And that worked beautifully. I've forgotten once more what the particular shades of color were, but he looked at them, and it might have been pure violet or something like this. And he began to observe the colors. Now, I think I need to describe to you what he saw. Any findings that he made were recorded by Peace at the time, all on paper. And I still have these notes from the sessions. And as I said to you a while ago, I think what we were doing was him observing the different shades of color. And that was okay, we stopped having him observe the colors anymore. But it was really, really cool to be observing the actual pieces of music. I'd like to tell you just a wee bit about what it was. Now, I was with him. This was all upstairs in the lounge there. It wasn't long, though, before he was observing the forms scene when Wendy Dixon began to play, or sing rather, the music forms produced by her singing the Ave Maria by Schubert. And I've got the music forms of this later on, plus a few others. And now I want to tell you a wee bit about the actual forms that he saw. Oh, here's a picture of Geoffrey himself. That's Brother G, as a few of the people who knew him very intimately called him. And after we'd been working for a while, he gave me this photo. And that was very special. I'm very, very blessed, I feel, to have this picture. It was him. Now, I actually want to, I've given you a wee bit of an introduction as to how the research began. And I'm going to begin to move on now onto the actual physical forms with the intention of developing what they were as he saw things. And this is leading up to actually showing you the forms that he saw as we produced the music itself. So this is not the music, it's just an illustration of the physical forms. Which one?
In front of me is a giant metal square, and I'm going to use this as a kind of blank piece of graph paper to plot a random distribution of couscous. Okay, there we go. It's a scatter plot. Okay, maybe not. Now, this is a pretty random distribution of couscous, but when I take my bow and I play this metal square like an instrument, this random distribution will suddenly become decidedly unrandom. Here we go. Nice. A big thank you to the Centre for Life in Newcastle for lending me their Cladney plate. The Centre for Life is an amazing science centre run by amazing people, so go and check it out.
And this man came after the woman, and he developed this into this subject here, cymatics. And he did it with, hey, an interesting way you might like to try it at home is to get an old teapot, one of those ones with a spout on it, curly spout, and stretch across it a rubber sheet like a balloon, that you popped, and you stretch the rubber film of the balloon across the open top of the teapot, and then you put a rubber band around that to hold it in place. Sprinkle on it sand or sugar or couscous, whichever you've got in your kitchen, and begin to hum different notes down through the spout of the teapot. And I'm looking forward to hearing at least one person in New Zealand who has tried this in the next week. I really would love it if somebody actually went away and tried that. Well, let's move on then anyway. And the higher the frequencies are, the richer the patterns are, because more and more different parts of the plate are vibrating in different relationships to each other. So now on to Geoffrey. The reason why I chose to display a few of the physical patterns for you is that they are a humble but definite analogy of what happens in the non-physical worlds, which is where Geoffrey was doing his observations. And the idea is that in the physical world, if you have a particular note impinging on something like a plate, by changing the frequency, are you able to change the pattern? So to a very simple degree, this is an example of the form building ability of vibration. And we're going to take this through with music. And towards the end of the talk, I'm going to be extrapolating it onto the actual creation of the universe and all the forms of nature, which is a big stretch, but hey, theosophy is nothing if not a big stretch, eh? So a brain that is not stretched after a theosophical talk or a book or anything missed the opportunity. But anyway, here we go. This is what is in the first book of Geoffrey's music forms. It's a great big book. It's over a foot, 12 inches, or probably 15 centimeters high. And he had 8 paintings in that book. And the first example that he observed in Hollywood, believe it or not, he did this work amazingly with the TS in Hollywood, which was a thriving branch then. And they had an organ and a choir and all sorts there. And they did a few different investigations, as I did with him. And the first thing he noticed when a clairvoyant like him observed the forms produced when somebody sang a note. And what happened, if you look down the bottom left of this picture, it's like a little flower-like form. In this case, it's a blue. And every time the singer changed the note, you began to get a new flower-like or trumpet-like form, which would begin. The first thing he noticed was this particular phenomenon in the astral plane of the room or the church, whatever it was. And as he looked, as the person was doing a note and singing a melodic line, there would be a series of these little flower-like forms of different colors that would correspond to the actual pitches. And it was because I knew about this that I began by trying to play him different notes on the clarinet. But the interesting thing, though, is that the moment the singer began to try and sing a note, the astral substance of the room would begin to shimmer and produce the sheen of different colors in the room. I want to tell you something about that because I was talking to a Maori elder, a woman, a kuya, I guess, and asked her about this. I think the Maori woman was in the audience when I was talking about music forms, and I mentioned how he noticed that the astral energy, the astral realm, the actual plane, the substance of the room began to shimmer like this. And I was talking about this, and afterwards I went up to this woman and asked her, is it true that when Maori, is this anything? Is this what Geoffrey saw? Anything like what Maori see when they see a note being sung or chanted in the room? And the reason I asked her this is that when you see Maori dances and chants being done, very often the women will do this with their hands, and nobody mentioned that it was due to the sound or the esoteric effect of music. But I asked her afterwards, is this what you see? Is this what a Maori seer sees when they chant a note in the room? And she just twinkled her eyes at me and nodded her heads with her eyes shining. And I was really chuffed at that. I thought that, well, that's really, really cool. That this lady was prepared to acknowledge to me that the Maori in their tauhunga, the elders, the more spiritually awakened elders, she was able to confirm for me that, yes, we do see something like that. And that was to remain a secret. But I'm happy to share this with you in the groups of the Theosophical Society. So anyway, I didn't deliver that quite the best way I would like to. But anyway, she confirmed, yes, with nodding head and twinkling eyes, that yes, is the Maori do. Those who got the faculties do see phenomena like this. So I thought, yay, that is so nice to know. Right, next, we're moving on now onto other pieces of music in his first book, Odd Music Forms. I'm just wondering if I can mute myself. I want to cough and clear my throat. Right, here we are. This is a magnificent piece of music, which was played on the organ in the church, it was a church at Hollywood, where the branch was having a meeting. And when it's finished being seen by Geoffrey, so when the piece of music has been playing for a while, it has a slow, quiet, pastoral, and peaceful, slow movement, the second movement. And as Geoffrey observed the music form, what's interesting about this is that as the music is being played, he sees for each individual note the emergence of a little flower form, like that one we looked at a moment ago, 10 minutes ago. But as the piece proceeds and the musicians or the organist performs it, every note produces another flower form, which begins to merge with the original flower form to begin to create a music form. And that's how the final music form is created. So what this picture is displaying, how it looked to him in the church at the point when they had played the first movement, which is very majestic. If we go back, there we are. Oh, cool. And when the musician was halfway through the actual slow, peaceful movement, it changed a lot. And one of the big differences was how there was this chain of little, it's actually like a bead of beads, a chain of beads, and they were scintillating and silvery, and each one corresponded to a different note. And it danced around there like a little wreath around the central musical form. Now, what's going on with this particular form is that with the fiery energies of the music, Mozart had become extremely interested in masonry. He had become very interested in Freemasonry by this time, and he joined the organization, and he perceived these flames rising up above the floor, and there was a faint but definite crosshatch pattern, rather like tiles on the floor, as there would be in a temple, a Masonic temple. But the flames are there rising up as the music was played, and I'm not playing it tonight for you because of time, but it is a very dramatic piece. It's most definitely of a fiery nature. And then when he gets to the middle of the piece, of that movement, it has the silvery beads. Well, there's a third movement which goes back to the fiery nature of it all. And I'm just going to move on. And I am actually going to play this piece of music for you. It's the Hallelujah Chorus, which lots and lots of people know is performed in town halls around New Zealand and the world, with a big choir. So be it. By the way, I don't know if you knew, I didn't warn you in advance, but I put my hands up like this each time King of Kings was sung, in case you wanted a correlation with the moment. The word alleluia is an ancient, highly metric word itself, which has a meaning akin to praise and glory be and joyful, ecstatic upliftment up to the heart and soul towards the divine being, and of course the Christ, which is what this is all about. This work is about Handel's Messiah. It's about the birth of Jesus in this world, and this is by Wagner. I won't dwell on this, but again, Wagner, perhaps of all the composers, apart from maybe Beethoven, gets the most press in theosophical books. And Generajadasa actually writes about Wagner, that he, perhaps more than any other composer, touched the Buddhic realm with his music. It really is quite extraordinary, quite wonderful. And this particular that's the prize song. Yeah, okay. But he wrote another opera called Parsifal, which is a Grail opera, and that one perhaps reaches even further into the Buddhic realm, the higher spiritual realm, which is above the higher mental realm. It's one where the Christ consciousness particularly is found to be present. Now, here's a piece that I actually played for Geoffrey. This is very special. We did have other musicians playing as well. Hugh Dixon played one or two pieces on the trumpet. And actually, while I'm talking about that, I've got such a lot of memories that I could share. But just in brief, I want to talk about the energies raised by playing music. And when you sing, it's very good for you, I think, as long as it's uplifting music. If you sing, it enhances the health aura, which is the etheric field of the body. It's the densest one, which is just above the physical. And he often observed our health auras being expanded in response to music that we were listening to, but also especially for the person doing the playing. But beyond that, when Hugh played a stirring trumpet piece, Geoffrey noticed the rising of the Kundalini energy straight up through his spine and out to spray like a fountain all around to bless everybody in the room. And here's something I especially want to share about that. It is that we are rightfully warned in theosophical books not to jump in and to try and meditate 6 hours a day to stir the Kundalini before we're ready, because it can definitely get us into severe trouble, and we can go insane or things like that. But what is very good about this occasion here, where the energy was raised by the music, is that it was only a moderate stirring of the Kundalini, and it's all right to play. I thought, oh, well, great, we can keep on playing our trumpets and our recorders and singing our songs. It is all right. Because the amount of energy stirred is not overly much for us. It's just a beneficial degree of awakening. And I thought it was important to share that with you. But when in particular Wendy Dixon sang, and we're going to be hearing the Ave Maria that she sang just a bit later. When she sang, I don't think there's breaching of privacy. I think it's really good for you to know that her throat chakra and her heart chakra were hugely expanded when she sang, and streamed out 50 meters or so in front of her. And as Geoffrey observed that, it would be blessing everybody who would be bathed in that energy. Now, as a few of us know, Wendy has gone on to become a well-known opera singer in Sydney. And just think what, God, it sort of excites me a bit to even just think about this, but the streaming forth of those energies of a pretty awakened person, as Wendy is and was and is, and her energies would bless everybody in the audience and profoundly enhance the occult effects of the music. in any opera that she sang. Well, that was an important a bypass there. Well, it wasn't a bypass, it was an important part of the talk. But now what I'm getting back to is the time when I played for her this particular piece of music that you'll hear in a moment. And this was much more a very calm and very, very serene piece of music. And these are some of the words that he described the experience on the player. He watched me while I was playing it. And he told of how it that this was extremely good for the player, that was me, and it worked to help to bring the spiritual energies of the performer into a closer conjunction with their physical brain, which again, like any meditation, any wholesome meditation, is extremely valuable and extremely good for the person. And he wrote that this music induced a sense of an inner searching in the player and a meditative union between high and lower with the principle of beauty and order in the universe from beyond the musician, beyond and above. It tended to bring these energies and to induce a meditative union with the principle of order and beauty in the universe itself. And that's written, by the way, in a little book called Clairvoyant Investigations. And I'm going to show you the book later on. And so here's that piece. It's not the whole piece. It's only about a minute and 50 seconds. Oh, what a beautiful work. Now, I want to move on to a song that we ended up actually performing 3 times, sung by Wendy. Wendy sang it actually twice, and we had it played on the cello once. But in every occasion that it was sung, it invoked and drew into the room the presence of a wonderful deva, of the energies of the divine feminine. Because of this piece, by its intent and by the words Ave Maria do mean come Lady Mary. Now that goes on, and here are the books. The first book is on the left, and the Clairvoyant Investigations, which includes the work that we did here on music, is in the book on the right. But I'd like to talk a little bit more about the Divine Mother. She is a principle, but also a mighty being, especially when embodied in the angels, the archangels and the angel of the World Mother. And she is written about at length in Geoffrey's little book called The Miracle of Birth. The Miracle of Birth. And he tells there how her energy and her presence is brought intimately to bear to every birth, even to times when a little seed drops out of a tree and begins to germinate on the forest floor, and also to bless young love, between young people who are falling in love for the first time, especially. Apparently her energy is intimately present there as well, helps to beautify it and uplift it. And as for the room, the actual room of doing this research there, he told us that with the presence of the great Deva, attracted by the performance of the music, her energy bathed each one of us, and that we responded on all levels according to our ability to respond. There were some people who would have responded a bit more than others, but it was a blessing to the max of the capacity of everybody to receive it. Yeah, just a little aside here, which is that when we did perform and did things like this, it often attracted the attention of devas around the place, like the deva of Mount St. John here, and even Mount Eden. The first thing that happened, well, this is cute, the first thing he saw almost invariably was when we began to play any note or anything, just the very beginning of a piece of music, it would begin to draw in the nature spirits of the garden who would begin to dance in joyfully on the energies and the vibrations of the music. And they would begin to dance into the room and do this little ecstatic dance with these little creatures, little darling critters dancing around the room, totally reveling in the energies of the music. So we saw that every time. I thought that was cute. Another random little observation like that. One day when it was very cold and the radiator was going in the room, Geoffrey had been doing some research for quite a while, and he needed to have a break. And suddenly in the silence, he said, "Oh, Sandra, do you see that little fellow dancing up and down the electric cord? He's enjoying the etheric buzz of the electricity in the cord." It's just like saying, "Oh, Sandra, the cat has just pounced on a ball of wool." It was just as every day as that, and just so natural. I thought, "Oh, yum. I'm glad I'm here to hear that." Another wee bit of an aside, just a brief one, is that when the lady who was the chief librarian at Adya in those days, this is probably about 1979, I think, or perhaps 80, Sita Nila Canton, and some of us might know her. I'm Renee. Renee, would you raise your hand if you met her?
No, I didn't meet her. Sorry, Mark.
Oh, that's okay. That's right. No. That displays the number of decades I've accumulated commensurate with the splendiferousness of my beard. But anyway, but yeah, we took up the offering to have Sita perform the Gayatri mantra in Geoffrey's lounge upstairs from here, and she did that. But the first thing he noticed was that the devas on all the hills round about pricked up their angelic ears, so to speak, and we wondered why. And apparently it's because the intentional occult performance of the Gayatri, something of such magnificence, with the intent of investigating it clairvoyantly, was a bit of a first for the planet, which was in itself very interesting. I recorded it. I have the recording of the sound at that time there, and I'm happy to share it. In fact, I think it's Oh, I think it's up on Theosophy World, number 316. But anyway, we can verify that later. That recording is there. Yes, I'm profoundly glad that it got archived and is available there to people. Right, back to this talk, which we have been cramming in such a lot into it. I'm extremely happy to answer questions. I need to close with a bit of an observation, which was promised in the blurb. But it was about the value of this work, purportedly and hopefully, to demonstrate in, as I said, a very humble way, the principle and nature of the creation of forms in response to vibration. And in the physical world, it was just in 3D, and it was just vibrations of the music and the musical instruments. And the music did produce those forms, which were wonderful in themselves to see. And the thing about music, though, the reason why I'm passing on what I learned, okay, in the sessions. We must have had maybe 8 or 10 sessions, which means I was party to a lot of chat about it and all the so interesting things that Geoffrey had to share. The reason why music apparently has this power to move us and uplift us is because of the principle of correspondences, which is a deeply significant occult principle, which is described in Theosophy in a number of books. And by the way, the go-to book for Geoffrey on angels is The Kingdom of the Gods. And gods was not there in plural, there to usurp the divine being, who is unutterably and irrevocably one, although manifested as countless beings, as indicated by the plural. One of the words for God in the Bible is Elohim, which is a plural word. Yeah, it's the principle of correspondences, which is the way that a vibration on one plane will tend to generate kindred vibrations and intentional conscious effects in the higher realms above, like that. And that's how apparently music is able to move us, because the primary energy of the music, well, of course, it's invoking the intention of the composer and very much expresses that. And therefore you have like a Jacob's ladder of energies going up to the highest planes, well beyond the mental plane, up into the Buddhic, and quite possibly up to the Atmic plane. And it calls, as any good invocation does, it calls forth a potent descent of spiritual energy, which is vastly more than the energies of the original invocation. And so there you have it. The music functions as an invocation, which ascends up the planes and calls for the wondrous response coming back. And that is perhaps an aspect of why we had that phenomena with the energies of the Divine Mother and the Gayatri. The energy invoked there was enormous as well. And so it's that correspondence, and it's described here in the Common English Bible and a lot of other Bible versions I found. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And it goes on. But the Greek word that is used there for word is logos, and it contains those vibrations of all those associations. But then, of course, it would have been great to hear it in the original Aramaic. Well, we've got the Aramaic there too. Hey, there are some versions of the Aramaic Lord's Prayer on YouTube. Look it up. It's quite lovely. Well, some of them are. And there we are. In the beginning was the word, the logos. And that word logos is actually used in quite a lot of theosophical books as a name for the great being who inhabits our sun and embraces and ensouls our solar system, and is effectively the God, the divine being that we can relate to in our prayers and mantra and different things like that. And that's it. In the beginning was the Logos, and the Logos was with God, and the Word was the Logos, which is God, as we name that being in English. This is a whole bunch of words which we're instructed in PowerPoint seminars. This is written by Tolkien. It is a story, his creation myth. And I'm just going to read this to you because it's just priceless. I think you'll hear pure mystical occult wisdom being expressed in his purported story. Tolkien begins his creation myth by narrating how the universe, Arda, is sung into being. God, Eru, creates several spiritual creatures known as the Ainu, which are similar to angels, and invites them to sing a great song. Eru provides them with an overarching theme on which they can improvise. He says to them, "Of the theme that I have declared to you, I will, now that ye make in harmony together a great music. And since I have kindled you with the flame imperishable, ye shall show forth your powers in adorning this theme, each with his own thoughts and devices, if he will. But I will sit and hearken, and be glad that through you great beauty has been wakened into song." And yet, in the midst of that great music, a discord arose. One of the Ainu, named Melkor, started to weave his own theme into the music. This disturbed the music, creating disharmony. And the story goes on. I'll just let you know, it has a happy ending, but this is just the coolest thing to do. I'm so chuffed. When you think about it, it's got the way the Devas are streamed forth, and that they have their creative power. Although they experience unity with the divine, they still have the power to exhibit according to their nature and create. And yet I will sit and hearken. That's the witness function, the divine witness. Well, all right, that's it. Thank you for this opportunity.